Hey, real quick, this is going to be a more serious video than my usual fare, similar to the video I made about parasocial relationships and language oppression a couple of weeks ago. If you're only here for Fire Emblem instead of politics, then there will be a Fire Emblem video in a couple of days. Thanks, y'all. Also, content warning for discussions of homophobia, racism, racialized violence, and the F-slur. So today I woke up to a large number of homophobic and transphobic comments on my most recent video, which was just an episode in my Call of the Armor Let's Play. Now, unfortunately, as an outspoken queer woman on the internet, this sort of thing happens pretty frequently. Random chuds find my channel and think that saying the F-slur or you're a man are the height of comedy. As a content creator, and especially as a queer content creator, you kinda gotta have a thick skin about this sort of thing. That being said, when large numbers of people come all at once and have similar talking points, it's usually a sign that I've been discovered by someone with a platform. And that's exactly what happened in this instance as well. Only instead of being the target of a random homophobic schmuck, I have somehow caught the attention of a self-proclaimed ally who has decided to send his audience to harass me in response to a comment that I made on one of his videos pointing out the ways in which his jokes perpetuated harmful homophobic stereotypes. Truly, in the mind of some allies, the greatest crime in the world is to call them out on their internalized biases. The other creator has made it clear that he has no desire to grapple with his unconscious homophobia. But I don't like the idea of my emotional labor going to waste, so I decided to make a video exploring the topic. If his followers are going to come over to my channel and leave rude comments on the most recent video, then I might as well make the most recent video something that might just educate them on the issue. Before we begin, I do want to acknowledge that the other creator is a black man, and I am a white woman, and there is a history, especially in the United States, of white women leveraging their whiteness and their womanhood against black men in order to play victim and direct mob violence at them. I have no interest in being the next Carolyn Bryant Donham, and as a result, I am omitting the other party's name. I'm just going to refer to him as John Doe. I'm also going to do my best to avoid any identifying information that could shed light on John Doe's identity. And I would hope that this goes without saying, but if you know who John Doe is, please do not harass him, please do not seek him out, please do not try to identify who this person is. It is not worth your time or energy. Putting negativity out into the world helps no one. So let's go over the inciting incident. John Doe posted a video wherein he recounted interactions he had with, in his words, a homophobic troll. The troll in question would post homophobic remarks, and John would reply with thirst traps. Based on these interactions, John Doe posited that the troll was in fact a closeted homosexual, and proceeded to make jokes about how I'm not interested in you, but these pictures will come in handy for your brokeback bigotry. He then laughs about this man's imaginary homosexuality and helpfully captions it laughing but not judging. This is the equivalent of saying not to be homophobic and then spouting some homophobic nonsense. I'm the sort of woman who speaks my mind, so I commented telling John that I was disappointed in this and that the homophobes are secretly gay is itself a homophobic talking point. My hope was that if this comment got his attention, he would examine the unconscious biases he holds. Instead, it seemed to just make him angry. He responded with a link to a decades-old study that has been debunked, which claims that homophobes actually have a secret attraction to gay sex. Myself and several others responded pointing out that this study is not only flawed but has been debunked, with one commenter even providing academic citations. But the following morning, all replies to my comment supporting my point had disappeared. Additionally, my comment was now pinned, and John had replied a second time, claiming that I was pearl-clutching and sanctimonious, as well as questioning my intelligence. My comment being pinned also drew additional attention, which resulted in a large amount of transphobic and homophobic insults from John's followers on my channel. I know that they were John's followers both because some of the users had replied to my comment on his video, and because many of the comments on my channel made reference to things like the calendar and daddy and big black dick, as well as just making the same jokes that he made in his video. If the timing wasn't enough to convince you that these two events are related, then that certainly should be. Honestly, this has just been a very frustrating and stressful morning for me. But I want to try to make something positive of it. So, now that we're caught up on the situation, what can we learn from this? Firstly, let's talk about the idea that homophobes are secretly closeted gay men. While it is undeniably true that there are some homophobes who are closeted gay men, just as there are some transphobes who are closeted trans people, some misogynists who are women, some racists who are people of color, etc., etc., the overwhelming majority of homophobes are heterosexual. Bigots dislike gay people because society teaches them to, not because they are secretly gay themselves. It's honestly a ridiculous standard, and the easiest way to show its ridiculousness is to apply the logic to any other marginalized group. Classism doesn't exist purely because poor people all hate themselves. The patriarchy wasn't created by self-hating women, Jews didn't come up with the idea of anti-Semitism, and BIPOC folks aren't responsible for racism. The idea of blaming the oppressed for our own oppression is a tactic as old as time, and is used by the oppressor class to distract from their oppression. We can see this tactic in full swing on other axes of oppression as well. News stations focusing on black-on-black crime to distract from racialized violence against black people. Men's rights activists blaming feminism for the woes of modern women, to distract from the ways that patriarchy hurts us all. Even looking far back in history, we see European colonists claiming that they were saving indigenous peoples from infighting and human sacrifices, both of which were racist lies in order to claim that the indigenous peoples were actually their own enemies, not white people. Not only are the claims of homophobes being secretly gay usually untrue, but they cleanly lead into the nasty habit so-called allies have of using queerness as a punchline. We saw this a lot during the Donald Trump presidency, with a frequency of unfunny jokes about how he's secretly gay for Putin. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain this, but using gayness as a joke or insult is homophobic. Yes, even when applied to homophobes. These jokes position queerness as an undesirable trait, and one that is free to be mocked. Even if the most prominent victim of your joke is a homophobe, by buying into their worldview that homosexuality is something to be ashamed of, you are also casting the queer community as a whole as a victim of said jokes. And I can understand this impulse. When I was in high school, I used gay as an insult an embarrassing amount. The unfortunate truth is that we are all raised in a deeply bigoted society, and as a result, unconscious biases will creep into even the best intentioned of us. And make no mistake, despite my frustrations with him, I believe that John's initial jokes and videos were simply the result of unconscious biases, not intentional malice. Because, like it or not, even the best allies are going to make mistakes sometimes. And personally, I'm a proponent of the idea that fucking up doesn't make you a bad person. What truly defines our character is the way that we respond to being called out. And as a perfect example of the fact that I am not above slipping up myself, in the initial reply I gave to John, I said that everyone has blind spots. That's a phrase that I've used quite often, in fact. But John rightly pointed out that this is ableist framing. It conflates ignorance with blindness. It's a phrase that was so ingrained into my lexicon that I didn't stop for a moment to think about its problematic elements. And so I do want to take this opportunity to apologize to the blind or visually disabled community and say that I will attempt to do better going forward. And that feels like as good a place as any to end things. I would urge everyone, if you consider yourself an ally to any marginalized community, please listen when the affected people speak up about ways in which you are perpetuating harm. If you're watching this and you're from John's community, then hi, welcome. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say, and I hope it gave you at least some amount of thought. And John, if you're watching this, then know that I don't think that you are intentionally or maliciously homophobic. And to an extent, I can understand where you're coming from. Because when you called me out on my ableist phrasing, my initial impulse was to be dismissive, to claim that it's a common turn of phrase and that you can't turn it around on me. But all of those excuses would be just that, excuses. The truth is, I hadn't confronted my internalized biases, and I likely hurt people because of them. So thank you for calling me out on that. I really appreciate it. And if you made it this far in the video, thank you at least for hearing me out. That's kinda all I got to say. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Stay safe and be kind to each other, gamers.